Hi guys, so this video is going to be quite an interesting subject, and I've actually got a question for you right at the end. So if you stick around, I'm going to ask you a question which is probably really applicable to where you are in your guitar playing, so hang around for that. Right, so let's get on to the main thrust of this video. I said thrust, I know. The main thrust of this video, which is a negative mindset or belief, or collection of beliefs really, which stop you from trying to get the stuff that you want on the guitar, whether that be a technique thing or what have you. And this belief or mindset manifests itself in, I'd sum this up as a belief of people like me can't do this, or I'll never be able to do that, or I could never do that, forget about it, forget about it. And there's different ways, maybe that different wording maybe that might resonate with you more, but it's an overall feeling of, yeah, forget about it, I could never see myself doing that, people like me can't do this, that's for other people, right? And the whole idea of this is you're separating yourself from where you want to be, people who are doing the thing that you want to be able to do, and you're over here separate from that somehow, and this belief sort of encapsulates that. All right, so let's dive into it a little bit more. So why is this a thing? Why do you get that sort of belief of people like me can't do this, or I'll never be able to do this? And I'm going to go through 4 reasons for that, and this is by no means a complete list. There are other factors involved, but here's like a main 4 that keep recurring. And one reason for that is you've tried this stuff before and it didn't work. So let's say it's a particular technique that you've been trying over the years, hasn't worked. All right, so again, that's strike 1. Second thing is you believe all of those myths about hours of practice, and you see all these guitar legends, and it's like you've heard all this stuff like, oh, they practiced at least 8 hours every day since they were an embryo. And again, another reason for that belief. Third thing is you think you need to have been born with talent. And the fourth thing is you think it's too late to get the thing that you want. You think it's too late to start making physical improvement. And what this does is you end up with this general feeling of, I guess, resignation, disappointment, and it's like you just live with it. And you know that your guitar playing isn't quite what you want it to be, but you just think, fuck it, right? I've tried it over the years, didn't work, can't see myself really being able to do that stuff that my favorite guitar players do. It's too much of a magical dream. All these things that I mentioned already, but it causes this feeling of like, you just got to like suck it up where you are with your guitar playing. It is what it is. And you can sort of like move forward in your life and just stay like that, as it is, with this kind of like slight low level dissatisfaction rumbling along on the surface. And it's like, it forces you to find workarounds in your technique where there's holes, and so maybe you don't try things that maybe you want to try. You avoid certain passages of music or certain songs or certain situations which would require you to be able to do something like, I don't know, 3-note per string legato or picking across strings or something like that, for example. And yeah, one way of doing that is, is to find a workaround, so you kind of like somehow skip over it by like patching it together somehow, using a combo of different techniques, so you can avoid the technique that you can't do, or you just avoid that stuff altogether, or you just throw shit against the wall and just hope that you just barely make it through somehow, so you sort of like cobble it together and kind of fake it a little bit. There's different ways of dealing with this hole or holes in your playing, but it's not really quite satisfactory. It's not really what you want to do, and it's not really where you want to be. So that's where you end up. You end up in this place where it's like, okay, there are these things that I wish I could do on a guitar, but it isn't looking like I'm going to be able to do them anytime soon, so I've just got to suck it up. Wasn't meant to be. It's not for people like me. And that's where these kind of beliefs come in. You end up in that place where you think, well, people like me can't do this because, and then all of these things I've just mentioned, plus many others which I haven't even gone through, because of all these reasons. Yeah, your personal experience, but also the stuff that you hear in the world, the things that people say, all come together to produce this feeling of separateness, where you're here and the people that can do the things you want to do are over there. That's separate, right? They're separate from you, they're on a pedestal, they're elevated, they're untouchable, you can't get to where they are. And that's the belief, all right? It's not a reality, that's just the belief, all right? And generally that's the way it stays until something either pisses you off enough to do something about it, or you get inspired or excited enough to do something about it. It's like the old analogy of being trapped in like a well or trapped in a pit. Like, what's more motivating? Is it the blue sky above and climbing to freedom and safety, or is it the pit of spikes below, which are life-threatening? You know, which is more motivating? Is it, you know, the negative, dark, death, negative side, or is it the positive side? But it doesn't matter. Whichever one gets you moving and taking action, embrace it, right? So that's how we get out of that. But a more literal sense of the things I've talked about, let's look at those individual factors, the 4 things that I said that contribute to this feeling of separateness, of I can't do that thing that other people can do. So the first thing we said was, you know, number 1, you've tried things before and it didn't work, all right? Now that's a biggie. I mean, that's not you being stupid. That is your brain actually trying to be logical and saying, well, I've tried it before, it didn't work, right? You know, you're just going on past experience. But what usually happens here is you blame yourself and think, well, I didn't try hard enough, or I gave up too early, I should have been more dedicated. So it all becomes this self-flagellation, beating up yourself, you know, I'm just not dedicated enough, I don't have what it takes. It all becomes about blame, 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 right? Blaming yourself. And look, sometimes, yeah, maybe you gave up too early. Sometimes, yes, maybe you could have put more time in. But a lot of the time, guys, and I really want you to know this, a lot of the time is the info is just incomplete, right? So you're dealing with half-truths, you're dealing with incomplete advice, which is kind of toothless and without context. So wherever the advice is that you've encountered, whether it be in an old guitar mag, whether it's been in an interview with a famous guitar player, whether it's on a Facebook group, wherever it happens to be, a lot of the time the advice is not even first-hand, it's third, fourth, even hundreds of hands later. It's parroted advice. So we've all heard the classics. It's just the worst one, just practice. I mean, how unhelpful is that? Whilst it's actually not wrong, it's not context specific. There's no usable advice there. It's not helpful. Practice slowly with a metronome and only increase speed when it's perfect. Okay, again, that's not wrong or bad, but it is absolutely woefully incomplete. It's without context. It's missing so much detail. There's so much more that you need to know to get this stuff happening, all right? So info itself that's out there is incomplete, and there's many reasons for it. There's many reasons that it's incomplete. The worst reason, actually, is people deliberately wanting you to stay where you are because it serves them. So it's all about you just consuming content, being entertained, giving you something to do, all right? And you guys really need to understand the difference between consuming info, consuming content, and then actually taking action and doing stuff, all right? Because once you know that, you can decide to spend your time engaging with stuff that's just there to entertain, or stuff which is actually designed to help you get over an obstacle. It's designed to get you to a specific outcome, all right? Now, if you want to engage in the game of content and entertainment, that's fine. It's just know the game, right? Then you can decide to willfully engage in it or not. But if something is there that just to give you something to do, or to occupy your time, or just to sap your attention and hold it on somebody else for an amount of time, then really ask yourself, is that serving you, or do you need information which is going to help you solve a problem and help you get on with your life and enjoy your guitar playing? So that's something to be aware of when it comes to information. Not all information is equal. Not all information has the same goal, right? Some of it's just designed to keep your attention sapped in a specific direction. Some of it is designed to actually get you to take action and get a job done, right? Know the difference. So the second thing was believing the myths about the guitar legends and all the stupidly amounts of hours of practice, like a zillion hours a day since they were an embryo, right? It's just not true. These are urban legends. based on half-truths, based on misunderstood interviews taken out of context. Steve Vai, things like that, because he had the thing where he said he did the 10-hour routine. What people didn't understand was he only did that about twice in his life. He was young, he had lots of spare time, he decided to do this kind of experiment. But what people don't realize was that was not the norm. That was not a regular, normal approach to practice that Steve Vai always did. But people just see the sound bite, they see the thing, oh, the 10-hour thing, and they run with it, and it just becomes a thing now, it becomes a legend. And what people don't understand is, again, like info, not all info is equal and of the same context. Not all practice is equal and with the same context. Let's say, for example, that someone spent 10 hours practicing. Well, what does that really mean? Does that mean that they spent 10 hours working on alternate picking in legato? No. There's no way the human body can make gains by putting in that much information. You would just destroy yourself. You would break your body down completely. There's no way you can make that much progress in one day for doing multiple hours. People out there spend way too much time practicing on physical technique in a single day. Just because they've got spare time doesn't mean you should be doing that. All right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. All right? Now, a lot of practice is broken up into different subjects. It's not always physical. Sometimes it's musical, sometimes it's theory, sometimes it's composing, sometimes it's improv. All right? So that's usually what it really means. If someone has a really long practice session, usually it's divided up into several things. But don't go for a minute thinking that somebody spent 5 solid hours or 6, 7, 8, multiple hours working on technique. It didn't happen. There's no way. You would destroy yourself physically if you did that. And you've probably heard things like Yngwie saying he used to play all day, every day, all the hours that he had. And yeah, that's probably true. He probably did play all day, but even Yngwie himself has always said, I never practiced, I just played. And there's a big difference between playing without a specific goal in mind, without a specific focus, and then practicing with a specific focus. And again, this all comes down to context. Everything we're talking about in this video, you have to understand. When you know the context behind something, you can then discard hearsay and advice which is just rubbish, and then you can listen to the stuff which you know is actually based on real world experience. Because when you understand the context behind something, you can say like, well, that's just not true, that's bullshit, that's just a sound bite that sounds good. And all this stuff like 8, 10-hour practice days are sound bites, and they sound good, and and they build up the legend of the player. They make them sound awesome. They make them sound like someone who was willing to die for their art, willing to suffer for their art. So this stuff sounds good, it builds up the legend, so that's why it survives and gets passed on from person to person. Is, yeah man, this guy used to practice 8 hours a day, man, and it's just not true. And oh, and I haven't even said this yet, but I never did that. I'm telling you right now, I did not do that at all, and most people I know didn't do that, all right? It's not necessary. It's a combination of hearsay, misunderstood interviews, sound bites, people just wanting to sound awesome, and yeah, well, no, that just covers it. It's a combination of all those things. So don't believe it. It's not true. It's just an urban legend. Now, the third point is this whole idea. We said you think you need to be born with talent, right? Now, I'm just going to skim over this a little bit and go through this quickly because that's probably worth a whole video in itself, right? That's a big subject. But it actually really can be broken down to realizing that really it's just youth combined with enthusiasm. When you're younger, you really do absorb information so much quicker, but especially if you enjoy the subject. If you enjoy the subject and it excites you, you're willing to put the time in way more than someone who doesn't enjoy the subject, all right? And to the outside observer, it looks like a gift. It's not. It's youth, the plasticity of the youthful brain combined with enthusiasm. When you get older, our brain doesn't have that level of absorption of plasticity anymore. But what we do have is enthusiasm. So that's why you can still make gains throughout life, but it just doesn't look like magic. The fourth thing that we looked at that causes this negative mindset of people like me can't do this, or I'll never be able to do that, is this idea of thinking that it's too late for you to build any new physical skills. Now, we have this stupid kind of belief that for some reason you can only build physical skill when you're young, but once you get past a certain point, you don't build physical skill anymore. The only progress you make are are in other areas which are non-physical areas. Like in the world of guitar, we'd probably say, oh, you'll get better at phrasing, you'll become more refined, you'll become more mature, but don't expect to make any more physical skills like get faster or get a stronger hand or anything, or stronger fingers or anything like that. It just went, you know, and it's just not true. It's bollocks. Because, well, look, I get messages all the time from people saying they finally unlocked their speed picking, and they're like nearly 60 or over 60. I get a lot of messages from people saying legato, they had no idea that the fretting hand was the thing that was holding them back. And again, 50s, 60s, I'm getting this from people all the time, guys, all right? It's not an age thing, right? And it may be a case of the progress, it might be more hard won, might take a bit longer when you're older, but not necessarily. Sometimes it is pretty quick. I mean, my speed picking video, the big one, the one with all the views, you only have to scroll down that and see the people from different backgrounds, different ages saying, whoa, finally I've unlocked the speed picking, I've finally figured it out, whatever their words are. But there's so many people that are like, holy shit, right? Okay, this was the thing. And different ages. A lot of these guys are, you know, middle-aged, they're 50s, they're 60s, right? Different ages, all right? And it has nothing to do with how old you are, and it is nothing to do with hours spent. Can you see that these obstacles, when they get overcome, the thing that makes the difference, the info that made the difference, sometimes it can happen in minutes. It might be an hour, maybe they have to apply it for a few days, but it's got nothing to do with 10-hour days, right? And it's got nothing to do with youth, and it's got nothing to do with talent, right? So you can see that these things, when they get overcome, that's the proof. All right, it's not the stories that get bandied around the guitar world in the forums, all the secondhand shit that people say, all the rubbish that they come out with to make excuses for why they don't do stuff. You only have to look at the results people get. It just cuts through all that shit. It cuts through. That's the proof, all right? That's what I want you guys to understand. All right, so if you're finding that you're thinking that you can't do it, or people like me can't do it, you have to just look at this stuff, look at the context behind these, look at why these beliefs have come about, a combination of your experiences because you had the wrong information, bad information, incomplete information, and listening to people in guitar groups that are not actually doing the things they're talking about anyway, because a lot of the info that people say in guitar groups is not their personal experience. They're just parroting advice, which is common conventional wisdom. And when people parrot advice, don't listen to it, because they're not speaking from their experience. They are just recycling what they've seen someone else say. So when you know that someone's parroting advice or they're recycling advice, well, you don't always know that, but just be aware that they might be. All right, so just don't listen to that stuff so much. This stuff is incomplete. All right, don't listen to hearsay. Don't listen to some random dude in a random group somewhere. As if they're the oracle. Most of the time they're not even practicing the stuff they're talking about. Most of the time they can't even do the technique as well, which they're weighing in on with their 5 cents. Maybe they're weighing in on speed picking, maybe they're weighing in on hand sync or legato or some form of technique, but a lot of times these people can't do it anyway. They're just parroting what they've seen somebody else say. And going back to the whole you cannot make progress past a certain age, no physical progress. There's guitar players out there who just seem to be getting better and better physically. Two great examples of this, Chris and Pelletieri and Vinnie Moore. They're both they just seem to be getting better and better and better with age. And I don't just mean that from a phrasing, vocabulary perspective, which is what people usually think when they think about getting better with age. They actually do seem to be just keep generating more and more physical skills. There's technical things which they're doing now which they weren't doing before. So they are physically getting better as well as getting better in terms of their vocabulary and phrasing. So, right, so that's proof. And both of those guys are way into their 50s, right? I think their next big milestone is probably going to be the big 6-0, all right? So this proves to you guys, age is no excuse. It's not too late for you to make physical gains. It's not too late for you to get the technique you want. All this stuff, people like me can't do this, it's rubbish, because people like you is people like that, human beings, right? We can all do these things. It's just having the right information. And lastly, I just want to say, I've used this analogy before, the kind of Usain Bolt analogy, which is this. Look, not everybody is going to be an Olympian level, right? Not everybody can be Usain Bolt, but everybody can improve from where they are right now, and they can be better than they've ever been before. Do you understand? So here's a scale, a moving scale. Here is where you are. Here's mediocre, right? And here is world-class level, right? Olympian level, right? Not everybody's going to go all the way to Olympian level, all right? But everybody can go this way. Maybe you'll get there. Yeah, maybe you won't get to Olympian, but maybe you'll get here. The equivalent of using the running analogy again, maybe you won't be an Olympic runner, but maybe you could be one of the best runners in your running club, right? Maybe you'll be one of the best runners in your area. Maybe you'll just be a really great runner, right? So yeah, maybe you won't get to world-class Olympic level, but you can still get here. You can still go up from where you are right now and be better than you ever have been before. And everybody can do that regardless of ability level, whether you're intermediate, whether you're advanced, whether you've been stuck for years, whether you've had a guitar layoff for a decade or 20 years and you've come back to it. Wherever you are now, you can improve on that. Everybody has that ability, no matter where you are. And anybody who says they can't is making excuses, right? And we don't do that. We don't make excuses. So what about you, guys? My question is, everything I've talked through about the mindset that stops you from trying and getting the guitar gains you want, I want to ask you, what aspect of technique have you maybe given up on or stopped trying to achieve as a result of these negative beliefs that we've been talking through in this video? So share your stories and your experiences in the comments below. I look forward to seeing them, and take care, guys. Enjoy your guitar playing, and I'll see you next time.